Sure, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Citizen A, where we wrap the week's current affairs with the best political team on television from a very, very, very Auckland perspective. Warning, we're as fair and balanced as Fox News. Joining me tonight on my revolving panel of bloggers and Auckland opinion shapers, he's the editor of the best online independent news in New Zealand, a Shakespearean multimedia jester speaking truth to power in a way that makes Edward R. Morrow look like Paul Henry emceeing a National Party fundraiser, editor of Scoop.co.nz, the brilliant Selwyn Manning. And when he isn't hunting with political corporate mercenary Simon Lusk, hatching plans to overthrow the democratic process by online smear disinformation campaigns to spike the MMP referendum, he's a God-fearing family man who is a pillar of his gated community. Hard right-wing stormtrooper blogger and black ops denier Cameron Slater, welcome to you both. Coming up tonight, issue 1. Now Cam has been outed as being part of a cabal planning to spike MMP online. Should he stand trial for treason? And how will the right attack MMP? Issue 2. The ideologically stacked welfare raiser gang have given John Key all the Benny bashing he needs for the election, with the most vulnerable and weakest members of society being told to do with less for government economic incompetence. Auckland has the largest urban poverty. How will we be impacted? Issue 3 tonight. Rodney Hyde said it would cost $126 million. The IT blowout for the Auckland super city hits over $500 million. Who is to blame? Who is going to pay? And where are all these supposed savings from the amalgamation? And we'll end the show on a final word. But let's kick things off with issue 1. The Sunday Star Times carried a story in the weekend connecting right-wing storm blogger Cameron Slater, government pollster David Farrar, and corporate political mercenary Simon Lusk to plans for smearing MMP so that the right can cement themselves into a position of power with an electoral system that benefits the elites they heartlessly and soullessly serve. How will the right attack MMP? Cam, when you took me home 2 weeks ago in your car, and your car was full of ammo, you were taking on your hunting trip with Simon Lusk, there was a lot of ammo in that car, eh? Are you seriously going to tell me and Selwyn and the millions of Citizen A fans who are watching right now that when you went hunting with corporate political fixer Simon Lusk a fortnight ago, you didn't once mention MMP and how you could spike the vote?
No, we didn't. We talked about how you send the dogs in to flush the quail. We flushed the quail and knocked them out of the sky, and we really enjoyed our hunting.
Yeah. Quite a lot of ammo. You were out there for quite a while, weren't you?
Well, 4 days.
4 days, and not once on your man retreat of shooting animals. Not once did you mention MMP.
Now here's the thing, Bomber. You can sit there smugly grinning away, repeating the smears and the lies of Trevor Mallard via Anthony Hubbard, but not one single piece of evidence has been produced either by Trevor Mallard or by Anthony Hubbard to support the contention and is rather emotive and crybaby-ish article that there's this secret committee that's going to frankly have a debate about MMP and the whys and the wherefores of various different systems.
So your lawyers will be contacting the Sunday Star Times for defamation this week?
I don't use lawyers.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
Here's the thing, Bomber. You go on and on and on your blog to the 5 people who read it.
Yep.
That the sleepy hobbits in New Zealand just take one
don't
for the
wake
team.
Up. They're not
don't
wake
up.
They don't
and
see
when some sleepy hobbits, to use your term, wake up and do want to have a discussion, you want to go all Stalinist on them and shut them down. The only people who have come out with negative tactics, negative campaigns, negative connotations of anything are the people who support MMP. And they haven't debated the issue of whether MMP has faults or whether it has merits or anything else. What they've done is gone personal, they've gone dirty, and they're the ones who are doing that, not anyone else.
You've had 4 to 5 days to come up with a good excuse. Is that all you got? Okay, no, that's cool. Selwyn, why should a government pollster, a corporate political mercenary, and a convicted criminal get to influence how New Zealand elects its leaders, and why should the mainstream media give these 3 such uncritical coverage? I mean, the New Zealand Herald, for example, has appointed government pollster David Farrar as the online political commentator, minus any counter-perspective balance. I mean, isn't this a bit dodgy?
Dodgy? I think we've got to put it into perspective. We've got bloggers here. Their work is commentary that's usually opinion-based commentary. They've got every right to take a stand, as much as some people may find that abhorrent.
Yep.
What I would suggest is what this has all done is it's whistled up the debate into the public arena. So let's look at the positives of that.
Right. Okay.
That let the debate begin. You know, you will have a view.
Yes.
Cam will have a view on it. We all vote. I have a view on where I'll put my vote.
But we should know if Cam is pushing certain things. Shouldn't
Well,
we
you
all
know,
David
you
Farr
may
pushing
remember,
certain things?
yeah.
Yeah.
When we were on the program last time, if I remember right, the cameras were rolling, and I tried to draw old Mr. Whale Oil out on MMP.
You did.
He
You
didn't
did.
take the bait.
No, you didn't.
No,
Which is
but that-
unusual because you usually do take the bait.
In some ways,
Yep.
it doesn't matter
fish with a
really
shotgun.
where Cam sits.
Yeah.
In this country, those who think politically
Yep.
represent bodies of people. I don't have a problem really if a blog, particularly one of the
Yeah,
right
sure,
or
sure.
left,
Yeah.
picks up the baton and runs with it for some group.
Yep. Yep.
I would have a problem if it was a journalist who was putting out fact-based analysis that was then masquerading as some sort of spin merchant for a party or for an interest.
Like
That's
Anthony
against the code of ethics. So, there's a difference here in that respect,
Yep.
and that's how I see it. I think let's debate
Let's have a debate.
MMP, the benefits of it, FPP, and SM being the three main ones that'll probably shape up in the debates coming. Yeah.
Cam, government propagandist David Farrar's mate was the one who shut down proportional representation in the UK. What type of dirty smears will you be running in this election? And is Wellington lawyer Jordan Williams fresh-faced enough to disguise your evil?
Well, you're just running Trevor Mallard's fanciful, ideas.
Oh, come on, mine are much better than Trev's. Much better,
Yeah,
much well
well, actually,
structured
it's
and
actually-
written and much funnier.
Actually,
Trev's a bit,
actually true. Trevor's busily spending the next 8 weeks engaging with an evil right-wing
Why
blogger.
is he doing this? Why is he going in a... Why?
Because he's
Trevor, why is he doing this?
Because he's a political cripple and he's run out of ideas, and
This
that's
is
the best he can come
Okay,
up
so
with.
just explain to everyone what's happened, because I know that many don't actually read your dreadful blog, but you've actually taken a challenge to Trevor Mallard to go on a bike ride.
No,
is that right?
Trevor Mallard didn't like me calling him a political cripple.
Yes.
He got all full of testosterone. Maybe it's, the painkillers talking, I don't know.
Yes.
He then put a challenge on Red Alert and said that I was not man enough to accept it.
Yeah.
So I accepted it.
I think the big question is whether or not the New Zealand Herald is going to sponsor a cam on this race.
I understand the New Zealand Herald wants to sponsor my butt, because that's the only view that the camera on Mallard's helmet's likely to see.
Yeah. So what sort of smear? I mean, what is the campaign? Are you, how are you going to push it?
So far, the only smears in the discussion around proportional representation, and frankly, it's going to be a discussion around proportional representation. It's not going to be a discussion around going back to first past the post. I think New Zealanders have moved on significantly from that, and it's the pro-MMP campaign's wet dream that's what will be supported. So I don't think you'll see that.
You'll be trying to sell the extreme nature of it. You'll be maybe radicalising Hone.
So, what's Hone got to do with it? It's just not even part of it. See, the thing is, in the discussion so far since Anthony Hubbard's puff piece from Trevor Mallard came
Great
out,
article.
is the discussion is focused around individuals. It's focused around Materia Toure came out and attacked all of us who were named in that article personally.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any discussion at all on the merits of the various systems, and so the only people who have run the nasty tactics, the smear campaigns,
You're a saint, in fact, in all this, aren't you?
I've got nothing to do with it, other than I have an opinion and I'll tell people loudly.
Selwyn, isn't there a disgusting hypocrisy from the right here? ACT have benefited from MMP more than any other party and currently hold the balance of power, yet they still want to shut down representative democracy.
There is an element of incongruousness about this whole thing. I mean, clearly, ACT is in that camp where it wants supplementary member. But I think let's look at that. Why is it doing that? And look at the long-term game plan here.
It's not true.
Don Brash,
Rodney
2 days
Hyde
ago on First Line on 3 News, he said he favoured SM.
He might personally favour
Well,
SM,
that's
but,
okay.
but I
He's the leader
spoke to
of
Rodney Hyde before he was rolled at the day at Alan Gibbs's farm, and I said, "What do you?"
but he's
Yeah,
gone.
sure.
You said
I said,
last
"What's
time
that going to
helped
support?
shoot him.
What's that going to support?" He says, "Oh, we support MMP."
Well,
Yeah, but you helped shoot him.
Yeah.
So
But
that's not true either.
But like
I just
where
told the
Rodney
truth.
Hyde puts his information these days
Was
is
I
not
wrong?
necessarily necessarily to Don Brash's camp.
No, true.
Okay, so both of you, in the bad old days that Cam wants to go back to,
no, I don't.
Parliament was made up of white, rich, old, straight men. Isn't the issue how many female voters the right can con into thinking MMP isn't for them, when in fact MMP has probably seen more female politicians in Parliament than even before? Well, that's going to be the twist. That's going to be aimed at women.
I think one of the smart kind of pieces of commentary that's been born from the Sunday papers expose on this type of thing is in that strategy where anyone that is trying to oppose MMP would go for the Kiwi kind of let's find a compromise type ethos. Now, I think we need to resist that type of thing as a country, and let's look at it. If proportionality is going to be the debate, well then let's discuss proportionality. With SM, when you look at it and you've got 30% going in, what you would have with a Green Party is like if it got 10% of the vote, instead of getting around 12 or so in there, it would get 3.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Well,
it may
exactly.
do, but we're talking proportionality.
You're going to be aiming at
at least Don Brash said on TV the other day, on TV3, he said, we favour SM because it provides stable government, meaning a dominant majority government. But from the public point of view, Bomber, what I see is something quite different. I see it with MMP, at least people know prior to the election what all these boutique policies are that are contained within vessels called parties. Under the other ones, it will be a hidden cabal that sits in there in caucus coming through.
That's right.
And that's what I think is the problem.
Does someone need to tell David Farrar that attempting to manipulate the way we elect our leaders that favours the elites isn't fomenting happy mischief and is in fact enabling evil plutocracy?
Oh, whatever. Look, the bottom line is this, is MMP is a politician's wet dream for never having to honour a promise.
Oh, come on! It allows representation of how New Zealand looks.
I'm sorry, we couldn't deliver what we promised because we had to have an agreement with that party.
It's called cohesive society.
Cam is reflecting a sentiment. I remember in extended interviews with David Lange when he was retiring, and it was in 1996, and he said to me then that MMP wouldn't do the business for him because he felt it meant that you had to go soft on your opponents. And he says, I went into Parliament and politics to strangle my opponents.
Exactly.
So there is an element of that. What we have not seen, though, is the taming of the shrews in Parliament that he feared.
Who wins and who loses by having a right-wing black ops cabal attempting to pervert how we elect our political leaders? Who wins, who loses?
The general public wins because there's actually a debate, right? Which you Stalinistically don't want. You don't want. You've gone all,
Stalin was way too right-wing for me.
Who wins?
Who wins, who loses?
Well,
black ops win,
look, Shirtcliffe and co were beaten at the debate last time.
Because
why fear a debate? I don't care who it is that fronts this,
you're going about white
or even sits in behind. The strength of the issue will be its debate.
Issue 2, it's Benny Bash season with the most radical attack on the poor this country has ever witnessed. 100,000 sick, disabled, mentally unwell beneficiaries alongside solo mothers will be forced back to work or have their benefits suspended. Auckland has the largest amount of urban poverty in the country. These cutbacks will impact upon us the hardest. Selwyn, this is government incompetence, isn't it? The rise in GST saw revenue slump, meaning there was a $1 billion deficit in revenue. When asked where that would come from, English replied, welfare. Why should the most vulnerable do with less? Because of English's and Keys' incompetence.
Yep, the government has got itself into a fiscal hole. It cannot backtrack on where it placed its taxation benefits after the last election. It is going down now an ideological route that we saw in the 1990s. It came out of the budget. A week after the budget, the polls came out. The polls showed that while National had a bit of a punch in the face, it didn't get kicked in the guts by the public that were polled. It came out the next day, basically, and said, we are rolling this out. Welfare's broken. It's unsustainable. We know it needs reform. But the method of reforming here is one that chucked National out in the end of the 1990s, and perhaps it could take a cautionary note.
I don't think it was so much a punch in the face, more like a girly slap.
But there's also all sorts of issues with those polls.
It's the lowest polls National has had since April last year in 2010.
And it's still the Herald Digipoll which predicted that your mate Banks was going to win over Brown. Cam, you've got to give it though to John Key, don't you? Because he's actually sold the savage Benny bashing as moderate. What's moderate about forcing a solo mother back to work when the child turns 1? I mean, who looks after the child, right? What's moderate about drug testing and alcohol testing beneficiaries to be work ready? What's moderate about state interference in women's productive lives? What's moderate about the stand time, down time frames? What's moderate about work testing the mentally unwell and depressed? When you were depressed, right? When you were going through your depression, would being forced to be work tested have made you more stressed out or a better citizen?
It's actually not the issue, Bomber. What you're saying is you're opposing everything, saying that this is terrible and it's evil and it's awful and blah, blah.
It's pretty severe.
Whatever. The existing system isn't working.
Okay,
right?
we agree with that.
So we agree with the existing system isn't working.
Yeah.
I don't actually agree with the methodology of what they're trying to achieve. However, something has to be done. The fact is, though, is that the state doesn't care about you. If you think caring is about giving people money, well, it's bollocks. It's not true. They don't care about you. I've spent a reasonable amount of time on the sickness benefit, and the state cared nothing. They wanted to see a doctor's certificate once every 6 months, and they just rubber stamped everything. The person who got myself well, who got myself better, was me. And it had to come down to an individual responsibility. And you know the system's broken when you see in the papers that Sonny Bill Williams is trying to get a professional boxing fight with a guy who's claiming he's been a professional fighter for 11 years and also been a sickness beneficiary. Now you know the system's broken when you've got rorts that are as blatant as that happening.
So the last great pruning of the state and crackdown on beneficiaries in the 90s saw our suicide rate triple to the shameful OECD levels they are today. So the government can't pretend to not know the social damage these changes cause. But national solution is to cut back more public services just when they're most required. Let's be honest, making life unbearable for the most vulnerable isn't a political problem for the government because National don't get any votes from them.
Yeah, but they don't. And I remember what you're talking about there very well in the 1990s, reporting in Manukau in particular. And we saw the then Youth Affairs Minister coming to Manukau almost on a monthly basis, trying to address the issues of youth suicide. There are consequences to disengaging support when people need support, or to replace it, worse still, with a business model, with an insurer that is there to look after those who need it. Now we all know insurers, and fair enough, they're in the business of insuring. It's a business. Yeah. So as soon as you start to develop a pattern where you're going to be a drain on their coffers, bang, either your premiums go up like this, and this is what I have problems with the ACC method. That's the problem. You know, that as soon as you become dependent or requirement, and is of no fault to anybody from any kind of point of view, then you are going to be ditched. I remember Lester Levy, who's now, you know, with the Auckland District Health Board, when he was Chief Executive of the Crown Health Enterprise South Auckland Health, and he'd said a speech once, and I remember reporting on it, and he said, public health insurance, private health insurance I should say, they're in the business. If you are there and you want elective surgeries and you become dependent and need those, they are not going to want to have you here.
Cam, there are 271,000 New Zealanders classified by the Household Labour Force Survey as jobless right now, okay? Where the hell, and we've talked about this in the past, mate, but where are the jobs going to come from?
Well, the government
for
says
these
100,000
sick, disabled, solo mother beneficiaries? I mean, you live in that area.
No,
you don't know
I
these
think
problems.
what is important to focus on is why is our country so sick and disabled?
It's been for a while, hasn't it?
And it's not because the government hasn't thrown large amounts of money. People aren't sick because of that or disabled because of that. We have to really get into and having a look at why is our country so sick.
I agree totally, Cam, but I also remember
moved from
that when the
national
government brought in market rents for state house tenants in the 1990s, we saw meningococcal rates go way up like this.
Oh look,
there was a correlation between the health.
I share an office in Manukau. And
I wrote a big investigative article on this, the correlation between health budget blowouts and the state house housing
I share an
policy.
office in Manukau. I'm probably a lot closer to it than either of you guys.
I grew up there.
Exactly, and so did I. You know,
I
went to a primary school in Manurewa, so you know, I've got a fair idea.
I'm not trying to outdo you on this, but I went to James Cook High School, the first high school in the country to have a constable on site.
So you're both perfect.
So I know what I'm on about.
Okay, so
yeah. So, and you've got a current state of health in particular areas. particularly down around Clendon Park, which ironically is actually where a large Maori community is in Auckland. They largely moved out of Otara, and the Pacific Islanders have moved in there. If you go through Otara now, it's a way different
the migration.
Community.
You've got schools in that area that have not got the same children in that class at the end of the year that started.
So in Otara and places like that, the churches have got involved in the welfare of the people. They have competitions to make sure that they've got tidy neighbourhoods. They've got all of this sort of thing. There's other things that they do that I'm not too keen on. Their excessive tithing and those sorts of things. However, Otara is a whole lot better place than going down to Clendon Park, where simple parks people who are working for the council just won't go down there and do maintenance.
So there are problems. Okay, so
there are definite problems down there. We have got third world diseases.
That's right.
But throwing money at the problem, if money was the answer, we would have solved this a long time ago.
Cam, this is right in my argument that local solutions come from local problems or local, and local benefits.
Exactly.
And what we're seeing is a centralisation of the health structures at the moment.
The whole idea behind Whānau Ora was to do that.
But pulling out of the regions, that's national government.
We're going to move on. Both of you, if you look at John Key's comments on the poor choosing to be poor if they receive food parcels and that bugger all would starve to death if he cut off the benefit, does it suggest our multi-millionaire Optimus Prime is out of touch with the reality of the poverty you were just discussing? Come on, you can't make those comments and know about those
I think all politicians are out of touch with how, but honestly, they seriously are. If they were in touch, we wouldn't be pouring billions and billions of dollars into stupid courses that all they're doing is filling the coffers of the people who run the courses.
At the end of the day, a politician is supposed to be a representative of the people. What we're seeing is a total disattachment. As soon as they get down to Wellington, they don't know what the hell's going on.
They don't even live in their electorate.
Quickly to you both, how come the state interfering in the reproductive lives of the poor isn't nanny state political correctness gone mad? I take it's only nanny state political correctness gone mad when the impact is perceived to be on European New Zealanders?
I mean, this is more creepy than nanny state. Yeah. This is uncle state.
That's
and the
Uncle Bully.
The creepy uncle.
With the Prime Minister in his post-cabinet press conference actually not ruling out some sort of institutionalised contraception or castration or sterilisation out of the mix of this. I mean, really, he should have nipped that one in the bud. He chose not to.
Hang on, we've got a problem in New Zealand with people who are largely on benefits, bashing the shit out of their kids and killing them on a regular. It's about 2 or 3 a month.
Where's the neoliberal idea of giving people choice?
Well,
so there's going to be some sort of
funny how the choices when you're a certain class, you don't get choice.
Or don't work.
Okay. Who wins and who loses with crippling our welfare state? Who wins, who loses?
Oh, we all lose. National Party will lose in the end too, because we're in a cycle. We know where they're going at the moment, and we know what ends with that cycle. It's out.
What we've got is the structural welfare systems that were deployed by Labor over 9 years, still in place, that were supposed to be paid for with structural surpluses that disappeared the moment Michael Cullen cooked the books.
Thank you, panel. Coming up, Rodney Hyde said IT for the Super City would cost $126 million. It's going to cost $576 million. What? Citizen A is back after the break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Citizen A. We're reviewing the week with the editor of Scoop.co.nz, Selwyn Manning, and that awful Cameron Slater. Issue 3 tonight. Will the nightmare of Rodney Hyde and the National Party ramming through the Super City crap never end? Rodney claimed IT costs for the Super City would be $126 million and held it up as an example of the savings from amalgamation. Now turns out IT for the Super City will now cost $576 million, Selwyn. Surely we should be able to put Rodney and stocks inside RTS Square so we can throw rotten vegetables and bricks at his head for this price, can't we?
We should. And what we should do too is critically analyse any number counting that comes out of Treasury, comes out of the government itself, comes out of all of the officials that were there through the Auckland Times of the Auckland City Council with John Banks. I mean, these are people, you know, if you look at it, Hyde and Banks were supposed to represent business interest and fiscal prudence. If they can't even count, you know, this type of stuff, it's a total setup.
It is a setup. You're a bit of a computer guru and Black Ops expert. What has gone wrong here? Did Rodney lie? Did National rush it through too fast? Or is it a combination of lying and rushing?
A combination of lying, rushing, and believing IT consultants. As sure as God made little apples, right? Yes. If a IT consultant says something's going to cost $100 million,
and you would
quadruple it.
You would think that Acton National, particularly National, would have learnt from its time when it was in office in the 1990s, when in police it developed the INSIS program.
Oh God,
and the INSIS with IBM, it ballooned out now.
Instrumental in cutting the throat of that.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I thought it was the Labour-led government that actually did that when it got into office.
No, it was National that made the decision to pull the pin on INSIS.
No, it did not. It was still pushing ahead with INSIS. It was Labour that changed that into a 2000 to 2001.
With IT, it's simple, and so when you'll back this up, whenever you want to get stuff done on scoop.co.nz, if a consultant says, oh, don't worry, it's going to take me a couple of hours of time, you can know there's a week involved. You know,
really?
Honestly. Anyone who looks at the size of the job that's involved in integrating 7 computer systems and the GIS systems and all of those.
Who wins, who loses? We lose.
So
we've been swindled. And Len Brown is the mayor here. He must be thinking, what a hospital pass.
But
you know,
this is Len's problem.
Len can't say no, but he didn't cause it.
But Len can't say no to anybody. That's the problem.
Let's wrap the show. He says no to you. Let's wrap the show with last word. Selwyn, your last word this week is?
Well, I think people out there need to look at this particular government, this party that's in government, and really count the figures when it's starting to present what it's going to do next year and the year after. It needs to look at, is this particular party that's in government fiscally prudent? What we're seeing is evidence time after time after time that it isn't, and it's not good enough. It needs to change.
Selwyn, that was great. Cam, your final word?
My final words to Trevor Mallard. I'm going to kick his ass. I'm going to hound him for the next 8 weeks. And then I'm going to make him follow me the whole way around the 60k bike race. Thanks to Mount Eden Cycles for providing my bike, and let's bring it on.
Can't believe him. Thank you, Cam. Thank you, Selwyn. Ladies and gentlemen, to my final word. National have banked the asset sales into the budget and are now flirting with China to sell more of New Zealand off to fund National's tax cuts. Today it was announced a group inside China hacked Gmail accounts of bloggers, activists and academics in one of the largest cyber attacks in Google's history. As economic hegemonies shift and crack under the weight of the 2008 stock market collapse caused by venal, unregulated corporate greed, should we replace the Washington consensuses that none of us consented to with a Beijing consensus that none of us have consented to either? While Bill English and John Key keep making soothing noises about the vast sell-off to China, shouldn't we ask ourselves, do we really want a country who arrests artists, arrests bloggers, and arrests Christians for nothing more than worshipping during Easter more influence over our country? And while we are talking economic sovereignty, the free trade deal with America that Key is pretending we will make billions from will in fact open us up to prosecution by corporations and overseas tribunals, kill off Pharmac, end any local broadcasting content, and make environmental law more difficult to implement. We are New Zealanders. We're not slaves to China or America, and our political leaders should start looking after our interests and not China's or America's interests. If you like tonight's show, please join our Citizen A Facebook site and connect with other like-minded news citizens, and follow me on my Citizen Bomber Twitter and Facebook page. Thanks for watching, whānau. Good night, Aotearoa.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.